Was this? So the next one is from oh, this could be interesting. From Ray Jaramillo. How would you pronounce this? Jaramillo. Jaramillo.
Jaramillo.
Jaramillo.
Yeah.
The subject is Mil Mascaras. Hi guys, I have a question for Conan. Is there any truth to some wrestlers saying that Mil Mascaras was hard to work with? Guys like Foley, Jericho, and Billy Graham all accuse him of no-selling. I know his prime was before your time, but considering the time he spent there, knowing what he's meant to lucha libre Mexican as a whole, what are your thoughts? Does he get a bad rap, or is it justified? Thanks, Ray.
Let me tie this up with the Pat Patterson thing in a way. So when I get the WWE, there were very few guys I marked out for, but I did mark out humongously for Andre the Giant, Macho Man. Hogan never really did much for me, and I marked out when I saw George the Animal Steel. Okay, and we were on a plane, and so I don't have anything in common with the mother. And somehow, some way, Mil Mascara's name came up, and I was like, "Yeah, I bet that was really cool working with Mil Mascara." He goes, "Oh, never mention that son of a bitch again." He practically wanted to kick my ass, and I was like, "Wow, this guy has heat everywhere." This guy. Because Japanese guys would come to Mexico and they would complain about him, and wrestlers would imitate him behind his back. He was very, very, very aloof. He was extremely hard to wrestle with, and I had problems with him, like really big problems. One time when I was really starting to blow up, they didn't even want me to beat him. They wanted a draw, and he went off in the dressing room and took off his boot, and he threw it at me, and they had to separate us, and it was really bad.
Whoa. Why was he mad at you?
He was just like, "Oh, you think I'm gonna lose to this?" And he just threw the boot at me. He was arguing with the promoter and threw the boot at me, and yeah, he was mad. And one time when I was in this place called Ciudad,
what happened with that?
He beat me, I just had to do the job. But from then we had a lot of tension. And so every time we would meet, it was almost like a half shoot. And one time when we were in Juarez, I don't know if you remember, they still do it like in Arena Mexico. They have wrestling matches there that are like 2 out of 3 falls. Mm-hmm. In the very first fall, we started the chain wrestle. Okay. And he puts me like in some sort of semi-shoot hold that I can't get out of. Right. And he tells the referee, he gives up. So the referee stops the match. We lose the first fall, bro. And the crowd just turned on me. And I was like, "You're a Another time in Tijuana, he wrestled Damien and Halloween at the same time and didn't want to do a job for them. He was very hard to deal with, but I will tell you this. When I finally exploded in Mexico, and he was the only guy in Mexico I actually knew who he was, like, they put me in Mexico in the main events, and I had no clue. Imagine that a wrestler was put in the main event right now with like 8 of the hottest wrestlers in Mexico, and he had no clue. I mean, in the United States, like you were in a ring with Drew, Roman, Lesnar, and like you knew nobody. That's how I got into Lucha Libre. Like they were putting me in main events with all these guys, which I really didn't give a about, But I knew who Mil Mascaras was. So I was a big, big mark for him. And I remember the first time I met him, he was in Tijuana in the dressing room. And he was reading a newspaper. And I go, "Yeah, nice to meet you. I admire you." Okay. And he didn't even sell it, bro. Right. And I went by, and then he was taking a shower and he had his mask on. I was like, I want to see what this guy looks like with his mask off. He kept his mask on. The promoter asked me to drive him to the hotel. Never took his mask off. In the morning, he told me to go pick him up. He came in with a hoodie and the mask on, and then when I left him off in the airport, he walked and then he took off his mask and he took his hoodie. I never saw the for like the first 2 years of my career.
Wow.
Yeah. But so let me tell you the ending.
How many 2 years, how many interactions would that have been?
With
you
him,
never saw him without his mask off?
10 to 15.
Wow.
Yeah. And the funniest thing is, though, check this out. So then I moved to this really exclusive part of Mexico City. And one day he comes and he knocks on my gate. And I'm like, "What the are you doing here?" He goes, "I live right across the street, right over there." And he goes, "And I want to introduce you to my wife." And I didn't even know he was married. He was married to some little Japanese lady, very pleasant, and he was like, "Hey, anytime that you want to come to my house and just talk, I live right over there." And bro, when I got to meet him, he's probably one of the most intelligent men I've ever met in my life. He can talk to you about the French Revolution, the Mexican Revolution, the American Revolution, astronomy, anything you want to talk about. That guy's a genius. And I felt good because I felt him coming to my house was like him letting me know, you know what? That same guy threw a boot at a few years ago, and I thought was a dipshit. I respect you. You know what I'm saying? So I got mega respect for him.
That's like one of the first times I've heard a positive comment because
Yep.
Jericho hits him in his book. He buries him. Foley buried him in his book. And he just doesn't have a very good reputation. No. And people always tell the story about how when he came out for the Royal Rumble in 97, like he wouldn't let himself be eliminated. He got eliminated by jumping a crossbody out of the ring and eliminating himself, basically, you know. So he has that rep where he doesn't lose to anybody, and it's difficult.
No, and bro, without his mask, good-looking guy, tremendous voice. I mean, guy's a stud. You know, ADR reminds me a lot of him. Yeah. ADR can be aloof sometimes when he wants to be too, but Mil Mascaras is on a whole nother level, bro. Whole nother level. But you got to remember, he was a god in Mexico. He was a god in Japan. And when he came to New York, he got treated like a god. He didn't do any jobs in
He was
US.
the star.
Yeah.
He was a star.
Bro,
you look at all the Bill Apter mags back then. Look who was on the cover. Mil Mascaras.
Yep.
He had a very, very he's like he have, you know, you could tell he was handsome.
Right.
Even though he had the mask on, but he had a very good chiseled body.
Right.
You know,
and he would walk around like a little ballerina.
Right.
Yeah.
He had a lot of grace and elegance to his movement.
He did.
You know?
He did, bro. I have nothing but mega super respect for him.
Wow.
He's a icon to me, bro. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about?
But want to hear the funny part? Want to hear the last thing I got to tell you?
Yeah.
You know these guys that were sponsoring us for a while, Icon, or that we were saying their
the autograph and sports.
Okay. Yeah. So he goes like, "Hey man, I'm thinking about bringing Mil Mascaras in. You know, would you recommend him?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll get a hold of him for you. And he's a cool dude." And like about a day later, he called me. He goes, "F that diva." He goes, "I never want to work with him again. I never want to work with him again." And I just popped inside. I go, "Mil will always be Mil."
You want to talk about ADR for a second? Because I haven't heard too many, you know what I mean? Bad news always makes the front page, but when it gets rescinded, you never hear about it because you know all the charges against him were dropped.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about that. Like I always said before, bro, I love ADR to death. Great guy. Had a lot of fun with him. I always tell him, God gifted you twice, motherfucker. I don't know why you keep doing all these crazy things. But hey, man, you know, when you can get anything you want and do anything you want, you just do it a lot of times and you don't give a you know? And so, you know, I'm glad that the charges were dropped and hope he can turn his life around. He's always been great with me. You know what I'm saying?
You think he's got the rep and like a stain to the point where nobody's going to use him, at least in the States? You think someone would still use him?
No, somebody will use him. Yeah. I'm sure his reputation is tarnished because it's mostly been things with women, right?
Right.
I don't think he's had any problem with a guy.
Well, he's been, you know, you see a lot that he was in like bar fights or street fights or whatever.
No, 1,000%. 1,000%, bro.
Yeah.
He doesn't. And you know who he told me he used to fight a lot with that Drew McIntyre. And my brother-in-law, Jake, right?
Yeah.
DI?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's been on the show, yeah. So he's like, you know, like a host. Like if you go to his city, he'll take you everywhere, right? And he always takes Drew everywhere. And he told me the other day that Drew listens to the show and he likes it a lot.
Huh.
Shouts out to Drew McIntyre if you're listening to it. Boom.
What, Drew McIntyre listens to our show?
Yeah.
Interesting. Next one's from what do we got here? Oops.
Well, you know, it's funny because the podcasts and these shows and stuff, and especially this show, are kind of made for you if you're on the train going to work, if you're driving or whatever. But who travels more than wrestlers? So you have to imagine, like, we know a lot of guys listen, but it's probably more than we even know or think.
Plus, you know, this, bro, since we talk in the lingo of the boys, I'm sure the boys like, man, have you heard Conan and Disco's podcast? You know, Ray listens to a lot of people do. And shouts out to all the boys. We make it for you guys and for the fans. You know, I want all the boys in the industry to listen to here to learn, you know, and you know, join debates or send whatever, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's for our community. People that are into boxing aren't listening to this, only wrestling fans.
Yeah.